What is up, my fellow wizards, and welcome to another episode of Building EDH. Today we're going to be covering Beledros Witherbloom, 7-drop Golgari 4/4 Elder Dragon with flying. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. You can pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, activate this ability only once each turn. A lot of people like to go with the token generation route or the life gain, life drain route with Beledros. As a Golgari wizard, I chose to just put everything that I love to play in Golgari in this deck. So you're going to see a very synergetic mixture of token generation, life gain, sacrifice, and landfall all wrapped up in an enchantment package that's going to draw me some cards. You're going to see all of that coming up. So first we're going to start out with the instance. As we're going to be making a lot of tokens, we need to protect our board. So we got Golgari Charm. Then we got Heroic Intervention, Instant Speed, permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is going to protect the enchantments in the deck. Rapid Vigor, again, just like Heroic Intervention and Golgari Charm, you're going to regenerate each creature you control at instant speed. So if anybody thinks they're going to be wiping your board, they are sorely mistaken. More into the protection, we got Infused with Vitality, so until end of turn, target creature gains Death Touch, and when this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control, and you gain 2 life. Thrilling Force, again, just more board wipe protection, so put onto the battlefield under your control all creature cards in all graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. This will not get back our tokens, but we'll be getting back all of our creatures, plus our opponent's creatures. Morality Spear. Spell costs 2 less to cast if you gain life this turn. Trust me, we're going to be gaining life a lot. Destroy target non-land permanent. And then Assassin's Trophy. Basically the same thing. Destroy target permanent and opponent controls. Its controller may search the library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Beast Within. Staple card. Destroy target permanent. Any permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Then we got Realms Uncharted. Again, this has got some land synergy in it. So this is made to gather all of the important lands that I need into play. You search your library for 4 land cards with different names and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand, then shuffle your library. Luminous Rain, choose a creature type. You gain 2 life for each permanent you control of that type. Again, this deck wants to spam a lot of tokens of various kinds, so in a pinch, this is going to get you all the life that you need so you can keep activating Beledros over and over again. We're going to move on to the sorceries now, starting with Sylvan Scrying. Very good ramp card in this deck. You search your library for any land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Then we have Harmony in Nature. So you tap any number of your creatures, you gain 4 life for each creature tapped this way. We're going to be flooding the board with creatures. That's a lot of life. I've gained upwards of 40 to 50 life at some points. 3 visits. You got another ramp card here. Search your library for a forest card. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. We got a lot of the cards that say swamp and forest in there, so this can tutor pretty much any of those. Next, we're moving on to a couple tutors that we do have, just in general tutors. So there's an additional cost to cast the spell. Sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a card and then put that card into your hand. Grim Tutor does the exact same thing. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, but you lose 3 life. And then we got Demonic Tutor. Search your library for a card and then put that card into your hand with no downside. Love you, Demonic Tutor. Next we got Genesis Wave. It's quite a big mana spell, but in Beledros that doesn't matter because you can untap your lands and keep it going. So you reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. The deck is mostly permanents, so this is going to be getting a lot of things in play. Damnation, that standard oh crap button that you need to hit in case somebody somehow makes more things than you. Takes care of that, no problem. Then we got Pest Infestation. Destroy up to X target artifacts and or enchantments. Create twice that many black and green pest creature tokens. With when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. A great token generator and a great way to wipe everybody else's pesky enchantments or artifacts. Torment of Hailfire. This could win you the game if everything's set up right. You repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discard a card. If this doesn't win you the game, it's definitely going to put your opponents at a huge disadvantage. Here's a second way to win in this deck. Moving on to the artifacts now. Aetherflux Reservoir, Sensei's Divining Top, and Bolas' Citadel. So I'll talk about these three real quick because they are one of the main combos in the deck. With Bolas' Citadel, you may look at the top card of your library. You may play the top card of your library. You may cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost. Then you got Sensei's Divining Top, where you look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. You can tap to draw a card and put Sensei's Divining on top of your library. The top's on top. And then finally we have Aetherflux Reservoir, so whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you cast this turn. Pay 50 life, Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So the way this combo specifically works is with Bolas' Citadel out and Aetherflux Reservoir out, you are at some point going to be gaining life more than you're going to be losing life. So you're going to go through your entire deck no problem. But yeah, we run into the problems where we start, oh no, the lands. What are we going to do about that? Sensei's Divining Top. So whenever a land is at the top of their library, we simply pay 1, look at the top 3, cards of your library, put them back in any order, or better yet, tap this, draw a card, so get that land into your hand, and then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of your library, pay 1 life with Bolas' Citadel, get it back in play, and you're going to get your entire deck, you're going to get all the life you need, and you're going to be pinging your opponents to death with Aetherflux. That's how that combo works. Thank you for your time there. Now we're going to be moving straight on to the rest of the artifacts in the deck. We got Ashnod's Altar. So again, we're going to be having a lot of creatures. This is a great way to get some mana. Lightning Greaves, staple card in Commander. Equipped creature has haste and shroud. Protects your creature, allows them to attack immediately. Great card. Skull Clamp, really easy way to draw. Making a lot of tokens. A lot of them, all of them actually, are 1/1s unless I beef them up. So pay 1, draw 2 cards. Great card advantage. Now we're moving on to the enchantments in the deck. So you got Trudge Garden here. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2, and if you do, you create a 4/4 green fungus beast creature token with trample. Verdant Embrace, kind of following the theme with Beledros. You enchant a creature, enchanted creature gets +3/+3, and has at the beginning of each upkeep, you create a sapperling. And you got your Doubling Season. We don't have too many counters in this deck, but that's alright. We can double all of our tokens. Always fantastic. You're making 2 pests a turn. Anything else that's being made for tokens, it doubles. Any token doubles. Same thing with Parallel Lives. It's 1 mana cheaper and specifically only relies on tokens, and that's okay because tokens is all we care about in this deck. Next we got Wild Growth, another enchantment to stay on the theme with enchantments. We got Wild Growth adds a forest to your mana pool whenever the target land is tapped for mana. Exploration, so we can play additional lands on each of our turns. Revel in Riches, I've won the game with this, but it's very hard to pull off at some points. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you create a colorless artifact treasure token with sacrifice. This artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you simply win the game. Kalani Heart Expedition, it's a landfall card, enchantment. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you put a quest counter on it. You can remove 3 quest counters from Kalani Heart Expedition and sacrifice it. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So Beledros is again a 7-drop. This is a great way to get to him fairly quickly. Compost, whenever a black card is put into one of your opponent's graveyards, you may draw a card. It was a cheap card in terms of mana cost, and a lot of people play black. It's honestly good card advantage. Next we got Growing Rights of Itlimoc. So whenever Growing Rights of Itlimoc enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, move a creature card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your library in any order, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform Growing Rights of Itlimoc. I'll show you what Growing Rights turns into on the back here. Transforms into a legendary land, basically a Gaia's Cradle. Tap to add a green to your mana pool for each creature you control, or just a green if you for some reason have no creatures at all. Alright, moving right along, we have another enchantment. Whenever you cast an enchantment, you draw a card. Again, there's a lot of enchantments in this deck that keep the strategy synergetic, so I'm capitalizing on that by using my enchantments to draw many, many cards. Vampiric Rites, you pay 2, sacrifice a creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Moldavine Reclamation, whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So you're kind of starting to see the synergies here with sacrificing, gaining life, using lands, making tokens. It's all coming together here. Sylvan Library. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this way. For each of those cards, pay 4 life, or put it back on top of your library. Phyrexian Arena, just sticking onto the theme of enchantments that draw me some cards. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, but you do draw. Dictative Erebos, taking advantage of all the sacrificing I should be doing, can bring it out in a flash, so you can always use Beledros' ability when no one's expecting it and lay this down. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent must sacrifice a creature. Beastmaster Ascension, cheap way to get all of your creatures beefed up really quick. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster Ascension. As long as Beastmaster Ascension has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control gain +5/+5. Kenra's Transformation. I'm always a fan of this type of removal because it doesn't necessarily get rid of your opponent's commander or creature. It just turns off their abilities and forces them to use removal of their own to get rid of it. When it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, so there's some advantage there, and it loses all abilities and becomes a green elk with base power toughness 3/3. Life Gift, so whenever a land comes into play, you gain a life. Fantastic in this deck because it's not just your lands that are going to be gaining you life, it's all your opponents. So if you're going up against somebody else playing landfall, fantastic. Exquisite Blood, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. I do not have Sanguine Bond in this deck. I decided to leave Sanguine Bond out and put Veto in there as a replacement because he has the exact same effect with the added benefit of giving all of my creatures lifelink, but you'll see him a little bit later. We are, however, moving on to the creatures with Herald of the Pantheon. So my enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast, and whenever I cast an enchantment spell, I gain a life. All right, next we have Blood Artist here. So whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Mainly just capitalizing on the life gain. I know that people are going to be wanting to wipe the board a lot, so Blood Artist is just there to make sure I can get some advantage if I can't stop it. Here's Veto, as I mentioned before. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, and I can pay 5 for creatures I control to gain lifelink until end of turn. As long as I've got a big board and enough mana, this guy can help me win the game, no problem. Essence Warden, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Again, this is taking advantage of your opponents as well, because it's any creature entering. It doesn't matter if it's a token or not. It doesn't matter if it's yours or not. You're going to gain 1 life every time. Chatterfang, one of my personal favorite creatures of all time. Just came out in Modern Horizons 2. You got Forest Walk, and if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. You can pay a black to sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets +X, -X until end of turn. Tendershoot Dryad. Now you're starting to see some more of the token makers in the deck. Starting with Chatterfang, now we have Ascend, and at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Sapperlings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the city's blessing. Verdant Force, another sapperling maker. At the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 green sapperling creature token onto the battlefield. And then we have Wolverine Riders. At the beginning of each upkeep, you create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. Then we got Argothian Enchantress, another creature, Shroud, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card, again capitalizing on gaining advantage from my enchantments in this deck. Verdant Enchantress, hey look, another one. Whenever you play an enchantment spell, you draw a card. Destiny Spinner, so it's giving protection from any of my enchantments or creatures. They cannot be countered. You can pay 4 and target land I control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste at the end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control. It's still a land. Payless Plunderer. So whenever another creature you control dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token. Just again taking advantage of the sacrifice outlets, taking advantage of token generation. Very synergetic in the deck. Got Sanctum Weaver here. You can tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. This can easily generate you upwards of 5 to 6 mana if nobody deals with your enchantments fairly quick. Courser of Crufix, an enchantment, and a creature. You play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. This is going to go great with your Aetherflux Reservoir, Ballista Citadel combo. You can see a land before it's coming, and if you haven't used your land drop, you can play it and gain life from it. Fantastic. Dryad of the Elysian Grove, it's going to increase your lands, and it's going to change every land you control into anything you could possibly want. Avenger of Zendikar, if we're going to do anything regarding landfall and green, I feel like he is a must. When he enters the battlefield, he creates a 0/1 plant creature token for each land you control, and henceforth, whenever a land comes into play, each of those plants is going to be getting a +1/+1 counter. Tireless Provisioner, relatively new in the deck. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token or a treasure token. If we need life in a pinch, food token, but 90% of the time I'd say treasure token is what we're going for that quick ramp. Rampaging Beledros, again, just taking advantage of all of the landfall and lands in this deck. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you get to create a 4/4 beast creature token. Scute Swarm, in my opinion, the undisputed king of landfall token generation. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Meh, but if you control 6 or more lands, you create a token that's a copy of Scute Swarm. Scute Swarm can double and double and double and double, and did I mention he can double? Because by the way, he doubles. It's a fantastic card, and it's very quick to overwhelm your opponents. Ruminap Excavator is a great way to get specific lands back in your graveyard. You're going to be having a lot of unique lands that we'll see later on in this build. This is a great way to get them back. It's also a great way to reuse sack lands and get landfall triggers multiple times in a turn. Speaking of the lands, we are moving on to them. We are going to start out with the utility lands. So as you notice, this deck has the potential to draw a lot of cards. So we got Reliquary Tower in there. Radiant Fountain for the quick life gain. Field of the Dead, a token generator on a land. After a while, it basically just says landfall, create a 2/2 zombie. You've got 7 different named lands. Westfell Abbey, again, taking advantage of sacrificing and creating tokens. You can add 1 colors to your mana pool, no problem. But if you pay 5 and sack 5, you get Ormondal, Profane Prince with flying, lifelink, indestructible haste. Quite the powerhouse. All right, moving right along here. Now we have Temple of the False God. Not good to draw in the early game, but a quick way to basically have Soul Ring on a land as long as you have 4 or more lands before this comes out. Highland Market, sack outlet that also gains us life if we need it. Comes into play untapped, which is always great. Next we have Yami Maya, Cradle of Growth. So each land is a forest in addition to its other types. This is perfect mana fixing. It also works well with Chatterfang because he's got Forest Walk. It helps out a lot of other people too, but it's mainly here to help us. And to complement him, we have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. So each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. Fantastic getting both of these into play at the same time because basically every land turns into Golgari. It can be green or black. And we can't have Urborg in there without Cabal Coffers. Pay 2, add black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. Urborg makes everything a swamp. This is going to make everything... It's going to make your mana explode, is the best way to describe it. Next we have our dual lands, or lands that can tap for either green or black, starting with the obvious Command Tower. And we got Darkboar Pathway, Tainted Wood, Necroblossom Snarl, Overgrown Tomb, Temple of Milady, Jungle Hollow, Verdant Catacombs, Golgari Rot Farm, Woodland Chasm, Woodland Cemetery, Undergrowth Stadium, Deathcap Glade, Fabled Passage, Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds, and then finally we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forests and 1, 2, 3 swamps. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to show your love and keep this dream of mine alive. All my socials are linked in the description below if you want to follow me and keep up to date with everything EDH outside of YouTube. If you're thinking about making this deck or just want to use it for inspiration, I've included a link to the deck list below as well. Thanks again for watching, and stay foil.